Santa Barbara County Board of Education board meeting. We have some new things today that we will talk about, but we're going to begin with an announcement about our Spanish interpretation. Hugo is going to tell us about the Spanish interpretation that's available.
I have to. Okay. Good afternoon. In order to facilitate okay, so I'm going to start again. This is a bilingual message, and I will be repeating in English. Es un mensaje bilingüe y se repetirá en español. Good afternoon. In order to facilitate language access, we will provide interpretation between English and Spanish. My name is Hugo Santos, and my partner today is Steve Watson. We will be providing simultaneous interpretation for those in person and for those joining us over Zoom. If you are bilingual, you won't need a device, and you won't need to press anything on Zoom. If you join us on Zoom, here are the instructions to access interpretation in Spanish. If you are using a computer, you'll see a globe icon at the bottom right part of the screen that says interpretation. Click there and select Spanish. If you are using the Zoom app on an iPad or phone, look for the three-dot menu, click language on language interpretation, and choose Spanish. Make sure to also select mute original audio so that you don't have two languages in your ear. If you join in person, you should have a device, and if not, we can provide you with one shortly. You will turn on the receiver, and it should be programmed to channel 1. You can then turn up the volume as needed. If we have public comments in Spanish, they will be presented through consecutive interpretation, meaning the speaker will talk and then the interpreter will repeat what they say right to the microphone. We want to remind all of our speakers to please speak only one at a time and at a moderate pace, and I have to emphasize a moderate pace, please. Buenas tardes. Con el fin de facilitar el acceso lingüístico, proporcionaremos interpretación entre inglés y español. Mi nombre es Hugo Santos, mi compañero aquí el día de hoy es Steve Watson. Proporcionaremos interpretación simultánea para los que estén en persona y para los que nos acompañen será a través de Zoom. Si usted es bilingüe, no necesitará un dispositivo y no tendrá que presionar nada en Zoom. Si nos acompaña en Zoom, estas son las instrucciones para acceder a la interpretación en español. Si está utilizando una computadora, verá un icono de globo en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla que dice Interpretación. Haga clic ahí y seleccione Español. Si está utilizando la aplicación Zoom en un iPad o en un teléfono, busque el menú de 3 puntos, haga clic en Interpretación de idiomas y seleccione Español. Asegúrese de seleccionar también silenciar el audio original para no tener que escuchar 2 idiomas a la vez, lo cual puede ser terriblemente confuso. Si nos acompaña en persona, deberá tener un dispositivo. Si no es así, le podremos proporcionar uno similar al que tengo en la mano. Encenderá el receptor y ya deberá estar programado en el canal 1. A continuación, puede subir el volumen según sea necesario. Si tenemos comentarios públicos en español, se presentarán a través de interpretación consecutiva, lo que significa que el orador hablará y luego el intérprete repetirá lo que dice directamente en el micrófono. Queremos recordar a todos nuestros oradores que por favor hablen uno a la vez y a un ritmo moderado, despacio. We now ask the hosts assign us as interpreters on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Porter, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Thank you. I ask that everybody please rise. And it's always fun as you look at the flag before you decide to salute it. You know, those 50 stars always beg for many, many things to think about. So as we're back in the school year, as you look at those stars, think about all those wonderful smiling faces out there in so many classrooms around our county. just wanting to grow up and learn things about this world. So please join me as we sing our community. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. And now I'm going to provide you with some instructions, short, brief instructions about our new equipment that we have in front of us today. We are providing a live webinar via Zoom, as well as capturing a recording of the session to be posted on the website. In order to capture good sound quality, we have microphones at each board member's places, along with the board dais and the podium. Please be sure to place the microphone close to your mouth when speaking. Unmuting when speaking is green. You push the button until it turns green and then let it go, and that's unmuting. And when you want to mute, you press the button till it turns orange and let it go, and then you will be muting. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are speaking. And a reminder, please, one at a time while we're speaking. We will be asking the presenters, staff, and members of the public to comment from the podium, again, using the unmuting and muting buttons. Any questions? Good students. All right, Anna, would you like to do the roll call?
Sure. Okay, Mrs. Carty.
Here.
Mrs. Daney.
Here.
Mrs. DeWord.
Here.
Mrs. Ehrman. Mrs. Frost.
Here.
Mr. Howell.
Here.
Mr. Porter.
Present.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And now on the changes to the agenda, you should have all received a corrected agenda pertaining to the item on the GAN Act, which is under the, and there it is, number 18 under the action items. And that's the only thing I'm aware of that is deviating from our agenda or has been a deviation correction to our agenda for today. Okay, then at this time, I'm going to start our comments by saying happy birthday, Maggie. Yay! And also, we had a lovely lunch for Peter McDougall today, and his wife Leslie came, and we were able to visit with him and wish him well and tell him how much we miss him and his 3 items. There was a board policy meeting this week. I believe it was Tuesday. And Bruce chaired that meeting for us on Zoom. Those items will come to the board in November. We will not be handling them today. Any other comments from the board?
Just a few things happening. There have been several candidate forums for board of education positions around the county. I was able to go to the physical one that was held in the San Ynez Valley in Solvang for the for the San Ynez High School District. Some at-large candidates, one trustee area candidate, very well attended by more than 75 people, which in the San Ynez Valley is, that's like a big crowd. Very, very civil. People had very, very differing viewpoints, but it was very civil. It was very encouraging to see. I was also on the Zoom, Susan, I think I saw your name on there as well, with Santa Barbara Unified and the Goleta Union School District candidates as well. Also, I thought very civil. I didn't see absolutely everything, but I thought it was very civil. There were a lot of great things said. And I guess my only comment would be, I was a little concerned by, and I think this is a trend, how many candidates are now aligning themselves with a political party and making it a central part of their campaign for what's supposed to be a nonpartisan race. So that's a trend. I'm not sure it's really good for education because, as you know, this is supposed to be a nonpartisan position, but not sure if we can do anything about it, but just a comment as a board member. And finally, I was able to go to the Chumash Tribe Intertribal Powwow in San Ynez last weekend. The encouraging thing was there were a lot of kids there. There were actually organized groups from San Ynez High School that were helping to run it. It was tribes from all over the country. It was really, really interesting and educational. Very well attended, the best crowd ever. So that was really, really well done. So that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to report that I had a wonderful site visit to Catalina School along with Susan and Chelsea Duffy from Partners in Education, and we were able to see the dual language immersion program at work. And if you recall, Catalina was the first school to implement a DLI program at kindergarten, and some 6 or 7 years later, their testing in the KSAT is exceeding county standards at every grade level in the elementary. We had occasion to witness kids really engaged in speaking Spanish, listening to books that were read in Spanish, conversing and doing academic work, and doing it in the most bright and collaborative and friendly and happy and energizing way. It was really a joy to behold. So I just wanted to report that DLI is alive and well at Catalina School and Aliso and Carpinteria Unified School District, and the program has been replicated at least 12 times throughout the district as a result. So good job to Jamie Pursoon, who is the principal at Catalina. Thank you.
Michelle?
Thank you. I would like to report, I attended along with Superintendent Salcido the CCB annual conference in Monterey, beginning of September. It was a very successful conference. That was my first time in person, and the programs were pretty amazing, and there were just lots of options, a lot of county boards, county offices, county superintendents that were presenters, and talking about what their office is and how they handle things, especially something like interdistrict transfers. So I learned a lot. Also, the board of directors for CCBE, which I'm an acting treasurer at the moment, there was a draft of an advanced reader's copy of a governance handbook that was pre-released. The final draft is going to be and published in December, and it's going to be presented to all county offices and all county board members. And it's a governance handbook that it talks about, that provides guidance for county board members, specifically county board members, and it's the what must and what may be done by boards and superintendents. And this handbook is also, we retained the law firm of AALRR, I think Atkinson is the first word, to draft and review the substantial and very important portions of the handbook. And it also went through the California County Superintendents, which used to be called CCESA, but now they're just called California County Superintendents. They actually had a time to review it, and they gave back really great, thoughtful comments. And also CCBA's legal team looked at the book, and they made commentary and on the handbook as well. So I look forward to presenting it to all of you in December and bringing it back to our county board members and share a copy with all of you. And lastly, just a reminder, the CSBA conference in San Diego is December 1st through 3rd. And I just want to let you know that registration is now open and hotel rooms are filling up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Okay, then we will move on to Dr. Salcido and the superintendent's report.
I will make a comment that there are no public comments that we know of at this time. So
Not that I'm rushing.
all right. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to provide this report. which is within your board book, and it seems like it's getting longer and longer each time, and that's for Mr. Porter and the board. But let me make a few comments. Actually, let me stop first and see if you have particular questions on any of the items. Be glad to respond. And then I have a few additions or clarifications I'd like to make. Just pausing, and this is not your last chance, so please ask at any time, but I will make some comments now. So at the top, you see at the date submitted attendance for the programs in juvenile court and community schools. And speaking of juvenile court and community schools, we had a second tour scheduled for next week. And Chief Tanya Heitman contacted me yesterday evening and said, unfortunately, the JJC, the Juvenile Justice Center, the full facility is under quarantine. And so they really wanted us to, it would just, for many reasons, be better to reschedule. So we sent the message to the board this morning. And actually, one of the many reasons that I just said was because of their testing protocol. They just need to continue to test and make sure that there's no COVID-19 present, and the quarantine has to do with COVID-19. And sure enough, this morning, I got a message from Chief Heitman that said there is another case. So it just prolongs that quarantine. So we will reschedule this tour. So I wanted to report that out in case you hadn't had a chance to check your email messages. Okay, and I'll continue here. I won't linger unless you have questions on a salute to teachers. Your invitations are at your places, so we'd be delighted to have you present with us this year. I have a few more updates. So on page 3 at the bottom, juvenile court and community schools, this just prompts me to say that the juvenile court and community schools, and Shannon York is here, who's been working on it through Educational Services, works directly with Bridget Boblitz and Renee Wheeler. But we're working on WASC accreditation, WASC, Western Association of Schools and Colleges, and accreditation for high schools is really important. We haven't had it, and it's been a goal, and we're working towards it. And we'd like to come back work with Chair Frost on adding an agenda item next month to give you an update on the WASC accreditation visitation schedule and the work that the team's doing on that. And that importance of WASC accreditation, by the way, is so that one reason is so that colleges will recognize the credits that come from an accredited high school. And that's really important for colleges as well as the military. So that's announcement number 1. Announcement number 2, Ms. DeWord already shared about, which is at the page 5, that future event. This is really the event that Michelle and I attended was for county board members, and that was in Monterey. This one in November, on November 30th, December 1 and 3 through 3, it's really for county boards, but it's also district boards. It's CSBA, so California School Boards Association. There's a general membership meeting for county school boards as well. And I just bring that to your attention because in November, we'll have an item as per board policy related to reimbursement. So if there's anyone on the board who would like to attend, we bring it forward. We just make sure that the board approves and that we can reimburse anyone for their travel accommodations. Okay, last 2 items. For 9 years, SBCEO's local control funding formula has been flat funded. So the same over the year, there haven't been changes. And with the budget this year, the state budget, there's been a modification. So it's a positive change for county offices like ours that have been flat funded for so long. And when we, SBCEO negotiated with our 2 union groups about a year ago, a little over a year ago, it was a negotiation for 3 years. And it's lovely at SBCEO. We've had a long, really positive relationship with our union groups, and we've been able to negotiate 3-year contracts. When we did that, last year was the first year, this year's the second year, next year's the third year. When we did it, we said, by goodness, if LCFF changes for SB CEO, let's reopen the terms for salary for negotiations. I think it's so fair to do. I think it's beyond fair to do. One, because we said so. And two, who knew that when that negotiation was signed and sealed, that the cost of living would have changed so much over time. So inflation, cost of gasoline, all of that. So I think it's more than fair. And so we're beginning to have those conversations now. I give a lot of credit to Mari and Amy and our team, Kirsten, and many of our team members have ongoing communication with our union groups. Typically, those salary shifts impact the entire organization, every employee on our organization. So what we would be doing is calling together, convening the salary committee of the board. Here in likely, we haven't set dates or anything, but likely, if this is new news, I'm sorry for you if you were on the salary committee, but likely in October, so that we can bring some report back in November to the full board. Potential meeting again for the salary committee, we'll see, for hopeful board action in December. Now, the board action, really the action has to do with superintendent salary, that's under your jurisdiction, but however, the salaries impact the budget, and so we want to be really clear on what the budget impacts are, what the salary impacts are, and bring it forward in December. So just wanted to let you know so you wouldn't be surprised of what's happening. And then the last one is, I made note in a memo to the board around modifications to this room. And so just wanted to let you know what I'm thinking, and I'd love to get your input. I may put it on or ask Mrs. Ross to put it on the agenda for next time. But since you're primary users of this room and space, it would be great to get your feedback. But I think one thing we've learned in being in this room and the multimedia training center and the auditorium, it's nice to be able to reconfigure the room as needed, using things on roller tables, et cetera. And so you can see we've moved out some tables there. I shouldn't call it out, but it's right there in the hallway outside is where they're being stored. But things that we're thinking about in terms of modifications for this room are things like this. These tables have been with us for a long time, and they provide a structure, but they're very, very difficult to move if we ever want a different structure. So it may be a time to have more narrowed tables so that we can have a little more space and be able to be mobile. That's an example of a shift. Another shift, maybe something we're looking at, is potentially could be this wall, maybe this wall shifts, and then the wall becomes the glass walls outside so that we have a larger room, so we can have some more room to work with. And then technology. What's difficult is if you're sitting where Mr. Howell is sitting or where Ms. Anadra Ehrman is sitting, if somebody's presenting here, it's hard to see the screen. So you're always looking through people. So we're thinking about technology and access. That's pretty much the extent in terms of modernization, maybe the walls. Oh, one more thing we're thinking about is extending the wall behind Bill, behind Bill's right shoulder, all the way through where Matt is sitting. And so that the wall would come out, but then we'd have a closet to put some things behind. So those are some of the slight shifts. And so I wanted to tell you about it before we did anything about it. And furniture and purchasing things tend to take a little bit longer these days than you anticipate. So I don't have a time frame. I don't have all of the details yet, but that's in the works. So I wanted to report that. All right, so I'll stop and see if there are any questions or needs for clarifications. Mr. Howell.
Just the first item on school safety, and it was high profile when it happened, and then the next news cycle, it was a hoax, so everybody moves on. But I really applaud you and those involved. It's so important in the role you play, I think immediately of the Thomas fire and the fact being so proactive in involving private schools as well as public schools and getting teachers and staff from Ventura. And how do you do that? And there's a convoy and all of these things that a single district or a single private school just, they're overwhelmed by it. But when you put it all together and everyone says, wow, we can really collaborate and just do incredible things, this is a negative thing, but we all know about the school shootings, the tragedies, that you should have done this, you should have done that. This, to me, is just such a great example of how this office and you and your staff in particular can make such an amazing difference connecting all these people. And the fact that it's low profile and no one knows about it is kind of even better. But I just want to point out how much I appreciate it. I think we all appreciate it because it's so meaningful and it makes such a difference if a really bad thing does come up. We all know we're as prepared as anybody can be. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. I will make a comment about this, that this being school safety, active shooter considerations is top of mind for superintendents and districts across the county. And because there are so many different first responder agencies, so sheriff's office alone, PD jurisdictions alone, and then all the shifts that change within them, and then school people that change, it is extremely complex, I would say, and challenging. I want to say thank you for your compliments, and I'd say we really want to lean in, make improvements, make suggestions, have cross-agency collaboration around how do we ensure, how can we best do what we can to make sure that every T is crossed and I is dotted, because boy, it's really, really complicated. So thank you for that, and we're working on it. We're working on it to improve it even better. So thank you.
I heard you this morning at the County School Boards Association share your student advisory committee formation, and I would just like to be sure that everyone is aware that I think this is a great collaboration with our students, and to include their input. I say kudos, great. I'm all for it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Salcido. And now, right on time approximate, time exact, 2:30, we're going to have a presentation on the Innovate program from Dos Pueblos High School, Santa Barbara Unified School District. And first, I want to thank Mary Beth for suggesting this presentation to be given to us today.
Madam Chair, I'm so sorry for, excuse my interruption.
They're not here.
They're not here yet.
Oh.
They're not here yet. Yes. And I have to say, I wrote to Mrs. Choi and I said, we definitely firmly put time approximate to give
Okay.
you time to travel.
For them
So
too.
Yes, for them to travel and I assured her, not to worry, we'll work around your schedule.
Not to worry,
Okay.
we will work around your
Thank you.
schedule. The thanks to Mary Beth still goes, but we'll pause on the rest of it. So let's move on to the consent agenda. And you all have on the agenda the 16 items that are part of our consent agenda. Do I have any requests from the board regarding those? May I have a motion for approval?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The consent agenda is accepted as presented. Okay. In the action items, first of all, I'd like to just mention to Nadra, being new on the board, that during our handling of the action items, feel free at any time to ask questions. And the staff is in the room and will happy to clarify or answer any of the questions that you may have. So don't hesitate in, I know the first few meetings I was here, I was afraid to say anything. So you have permit, you have more than permission. That's your responsibility to do that. Okay, the recommendation for the approval of a grant for consolidated programs. Item number 17.
I will move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve and accept the approval of the grant application. Any discussion? No? At that point, I will call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we have the GAN resolution, which is a corrected copy of it. We got some new information, I think just yesterday, that changed the amount that that had been expected on the GAN resolution. So we have corrected materials on those in our packet. May I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
And I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call.
Mrs. Hardy?
Aye.
Mrs. Daney?
Aye.
Mrs. Stewart? Aye.
Mrs. Ehrman?
Aye.
Mrs. Frost?
Aye.
Mr. Howell?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, the next is a discussion and possibly action, if we come to a decision and make a motion, on posting the historical board minutes on the SBCEO website. And there's some information in our agenda about the page links that we have. Dr. Salcido, do you have some additional information that you would like to add on this?
I'd be glad to. I know I'd like to provide some so that you may have a discussion and action. So in your board book, I wanted to, I know that you see what is there. I just want to say why it's there in the way that it's there. I connected what is posted with the change to the website at SBCEO, simply because actually, it wasn't simple. It was really a big shift after, gosh, what did I say? 2006 was the last time we had big shifts to the website. And we knew that we needed to shift to make all of the resources, the entire website be ADA accessible. And so you saw that, and that's what prompted you can see a progression from 2020 to 21 to 22 with the materials that were being posted on the website. So that is the why. My plan at the time in 2020, so that you know what the plan was or is until the board makes any changes to it, was to provide 3 years worth of the agendas, the minutes, the presentations, and all the materials. So the plan was for 3 years. And my plan was not to move backwards and post more. Hello, so glad to see you. My plan was a 3-year plan, not to move backwards and post backdate, but really go forward, and can certainly add more to than 3 years, but it was really a forward plan. We have had, obviously all board minutes and materials are accessible to the public. If they may request it, we will give that to them. There's no hesitation there at all. In about 5, 6, 7 years, I want to say 7 years or so, we went back, and there have been 2 requests for additional minutes in that time to the superintendent's office. And I wanted to give those reports to anticipate questions you might have so that you could have your discussion about the posting of the minutes, agendas, and materials. So I'll hand it back over to you, Mrs. Frost.
So if I understand correctly, the tentative idea from 2020 was that we would start and then just add to it from there on. So the discussion we can have today is whether we agree with that approach, or if we would like to recommend another one. If we do, we'll need a motion. Well, either way, we'll need a motion. Questions?
I have a question. So if we start posting these, would it be a maximum of 3 years on the website?
That was the original plan, was to have the 3 years going forward and have, always a rolling 3 years.
Okay.
And then we would archive the rest and have it available, but just not have it, one long scrolling, or however you want to provide that. But yeah,
Thank you.
rolling 3 years, yes.
Mr. Weird?
Hi, I would like to start the discussion with making a motion. And the motion will be to post 5 to 7 years of historical minutes and board packets and materials on the SBCEO website.
Just for clarification, on a rolling basis, you always go back, if it's 5 years, you go back 5 years, so you go into the next year, one drops off, just to understand.
Right. It's up to the board. I think I would like to see 5 to 7 years on the website, and maybe the 7th year back could roll off, or we can keep it rolling, depending on the wishes of the board.
We have a motion. May I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it, although I would ask us to, instead of 5 to 7, either pick 5 or 6 or 7, just to sharpen it, if we can do that.
Yeah, I'll sharpen it to 7.
7, okay. No, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion that has been seconded to have 7 years on a rolling basis on the website. So we would start now by going historically back, year 1 to year 7, and then year would come off and a year would go on as we move forward, if I understand the motion correctly. Is that right? Okay. So discussion.
Question, Superintendent Salcido, do you have a sense of, as I understand it, it would be if we adopted that today and implemented it, we have 3 right now. So it would be going back retroactively and picking the prior 4 years to add to satisfy the requirement, correct?
That's what I'm hearing
Right.
today.
So
Exactly.
what does that entail in terms of staff time, and just, I assume once it's done, and then on an ongoing basis, the year drops off, the year is added. But do you know what is your sense of the burden of doing that for the years 7, 6, 5, and 4?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Howell. I think at first blush, it may seem that what would be simple is to say, I'm sure they're somewhere in somebody's computer file. Why not just link it to the website? And that may be how some organizations might do it. For us, because of the leading goal being the ADA compliance, ADA compliance has shifted our work on the website. It just did in 2020 and every year forward. So what that means is even the board agenda, for example, used to be done in a Word document. I'm going to make it up, but sort of like a Word document. And now for ADA compliance, we actually use a template with the right size text, the right kind of bolding, the right underlining, the right font, etc. So we shifted. That's an example. Presentations, when we post them, to the extent we can, colors are really important. So graphics are important. Photos are important in terms of labeling. So we take ADA compliance very seriously, and it's a process. So every single resource that we put onto the website, staff have been, our team organizationally have been trained to ensure or do the very best we can. I would say we do the very best we can to make sure everything is ADA compliant. So that's why it isn't just a link to the link and post it up. It's really a link, and each piece would need to be ensure that it's the right match in terms of the agenda, the minutes, the presentations, the materials. Historically, if we go back 4 years past 2020, it may not have been that we have all the presentations up. At some point, when we created a new website, at some point, we were only posting agendas, and then we started with minutes, and then we started with presentations. So they may not all be available. That's one thing. May not. We'll probably be able to find them all. But then putting them to ADA compliance would be a process. And so in terms of the timing, there's, it is the staff's time that we would need to reprioritize to be working on this. And I would say, you know, I know, and I've checked in with staff that work on the ADA compliance and shifting and transitioning. It's hours and hours and hours, but I don't have I haven't measured it out for this project. I didn't know the scope that we were going to be considering. Yeah.
I'd like to readdress a comment that you made at the beginning of your presentation on this subject, and that was how many queries there had been over a period of time, and I believe it was 2.
Correct.
From when?
My understanding is about 7 years.
Thank you.
So the older documents are historical, and I don't see any reason at all to go back and redo historical documents for current ADA. I mean, if we asked you to post a copy of the Constitution on the website, you wouldn't spend time going back and making it as if in 1776 they were using ADA standards. So I think posting images of historical documents would be the simple way to do it, and I don't think anybody would argue with that.
That's certainly an approach that the board might consider and discuss. Yeah.
In regards to that comment, that is something that we might want to just check to make sure, because even though it's a historical document, if we're adding it to the website after the ADA compliance requirement, then they may need to be retrofitted or revised. So that is something that I feel like we would need to know before we seriously consider committing the time. And my question, I know we don't know the amount of time that it will take, but as anyone knows, if you're doing A, you can't be simultaneously doing B. And so my question is that, is this, if we were to move forward, is this an endeavor really worth the output? And with those hours and the resources of the talent of the staff be better used in other ways that would benefit the youth that we're here to serve?
Thank you, Ms. Zerman, for that comment. I would say that we're definitely mindful of staff time. That's a resource that we can't make more of. And in deference to the burden of work of primary importance, I don't know that there's added value in revising historical documents. However, as long as there is a provision for being able to obtain the minutes at any time for anyone, and they don't need to be revised. It's a public records request or just a request. But it seems like we are now positioned to be able to perhaps offer additional years going forward. So it's it would be a policy that we would move forward in, say, you know, having 5 years of records on our website regularly, or 7, to your point. And that's something that we're already prepared to do. Seems like 5 would be a good number for my way of thinking, but it's arbitrary. But I would be in favor of looking ahead and perhaps adopting a measure that we could just, it's already in place, and we're looking ahead. And thank you for your attention, students, while we belabor this point. We'll be with you in just a moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing everyone's perspective, and I think of it in a little different way. I think as the collective public body, we have the obligation, and it's best practices, and it's very common practice to post historical minutes on websites. If you look at numerous public agencies, school districts, and county boards, they have 5 to 7 years, and even some that go farther back. And I feel that we should always provide, I understand we are serving the needs of the students, but I think public access is very important. And I think having to request minutes creates a barrier. Because I think that in this day and age, we can have timely access to our minutes. These are PDF files. It takes a few clicks. And I don't know if it's a law that we have to be ADA compliant. I mean, maybe going forward, but also we can post on the website. How about we go to the opposite, saying if you are interested in ADA compliant board minutes and packets, notify us. Have the request be for the ADA rather than, so the general public, which is the majority of people, can have immediate access. Memories are short and time passes between our meetings, and easily agreements and just information can be forgotten. So I, for once, when I prepare for a board meeting, I like to click and go back. I will kind of review, because we review LCAPs, we review budgets, board policy, and board votes. So I'd like to have that information accessible as a board member. And I just think that we have a nice budget of 100 million. And I think we have a great IT department. We have a communications department. And I think that we can I think it's overwhelmingly more important as a public body that we be very, very transparent. I don't think we're transparent enough. Thank you.
I think we can do it. It seems to me the question is, should we do it? It's not a bad idea to do it. It's really priorities, and it's staff time, and doing this means, as Ms. Ehrman said, you're doing A, you're not doing B. The ADA and the standard, I know what I don't know about the ADA. I am consistently surprised with the breadth and depth of ADA and how it affects things. I think I would be really, really uncomfortable with our voting on something like, let's put 7 years on and not worry about it. It'd be wonderful if that's the answer. I hope it is, but I have no confidence that it is. And so to do that without knowing the answer, to me, would really be imprudent. So I would suggest that the discussion and the action be deferred till we really know, because without it, if we were to accept the motion, approve the motion as proposed and add 7 years, to me, that would be, we may ultimately get there, but we're not ready, in my mind.
Then maybe I'll withdraw my motion, and I would like to put it on the agenda for next month and have our legal counsel come and refresh us on what the ADA law in terms of posting board minutes. And if there's the option to post that ADA minutes and board packets are available upon request, if that is an option, or posting historical minutes, as Bruce had suggested, as just historical documents, if that's acceptable.
In the essence of time spent by staff, I would suggest, since we're going to add this probably to the agenda next month, that maybe someone do an analysis of how long it takes to actually become ADA compliant in putting the minutes to be compliant and putting the attachments to be compliant. And that would give us at least a general idea of what we're looking at in time spent by staff.
Thank you, Ms. Ng. I would like to add to that, and if we could see the time that it would take, if we have, as you mentioned, if we have to be ADA compliant, and to put that information on the website versus if we were just to move forward and say like we'll have 5 to 7 years moving forward, and what the implications for staff hours and workload would be for that alternative.
Since the motion's been withdrawn, we're waiting for, did you actually make a second motion about, deferring it till next month and asking? Okay, well, hold on, before you do that, I would like to propose a compromise. As you may know by now, I don't like to kick things down the road and just keep digging and digging and digging. I kind of think we can get this resolved today. And what, if I can this chair make a motion? I would like us to consider asking staff to put 2 years on, which would put 5 years in. So go ahead and take the prior 2 years, which would be 2019 and 2018, and convert them to ADA compliant and put them on at whatever speed is available based on staff time on other priority projects. So it would be kind of like a fill-in if that ever happens with the staff. I know Anna's laughing right now. But, and I'll tell you why. I really will not vote, not that one vote matters, but to me it does. I would not approve of putting minutes on the website that aren't ADA compliant, given that that was the whole purpose of updating, not the whole, but one of the major reasons for updating the website was to make it ADA compliant. And why would you put a barrier in front of the people that need it the most by saying, well, put it up non-ADA, and then if somebody that needs ADA needs it, they can ask for it? That's crazy to me. If asking for them is a barrier, then having just the people who are ADA necessary having to ask for them is putting 2 barriers against the people that would need them accessible the most. So that's my 2 cents worth. So my motion is that we would go ahead and have 2 more years added for a total of 5 rolling years on the website, all ADA compliant.
Madam Chair, can you add to that? Because I think it helps a lot. It helps me, subject to staff availability and implementing.
So amended.
Then I will second that motion.
Second.
I would still like to ask legal to give us an opinion on ADA compliant. And I didn't mean to sound like it's crazy that I was leaving somebody out. I think we can do it both ways. I think we can make ADA compliant, and we can do, if we wanted it historical, we can say ADA in construction. It doesn't need to be tomorrow. It could be done over time. But I do believe that we should have, I appreciate your motion about five years, but I'd like to go 7 years back to 2016. And right now, 2020, there's only an agenda posted. There's no minutes and presentations that I can find.
It's my understanding that it would be the intent that 2020 forward would be included. I mean, that's,
Yes.
will be
Okay.
done regardless of what we do today. Right. I'm just a little unclear what we need legal opinion for. Could you clarify that?
Yeah, I think it wasn't certain that if ADA compliant was the law, is it?
It is the law for our entities to be ADA compliant, and of course it began at a certain period. I don't have the law here. We do have legal counsel, and so I went out to look and see if there is any comment at this time, or if you want to comment on it, Craig. Sitting to the podium or here at the microphone. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Again, I would just like to restate in my motion that I'm saying that isn't something that I think we need to consider. We know it isn't against the law to post it ADA compliant, so why wouldn't we? Since that's kind of what we wanted to update the web for. Why wouldn't we?
Oh, sure, yes, I think we should.
Then why do we need a legal opinion on that?
Well, because the idea was that you wanted to just go 5 years rolling back because of staff time.
Right.
So I'm asking for 7 years, and maybe if there's an ADA law that was established going forward, they must be ADA compliant. Maybe the ones that are before that law was established, they could be just historical minutes.
But again, on my motion, that wasn't an issue. I made it clear that I didn't care if it was a legal requirement or not, because if we're going to put something on a website that we're developing to be ADA compliant, I don't need legal opinion to tell me whether I have to do that. I know it isn't illegal. It's, I want to do that. So I just don't know why we need to have what that will add. And so that's what I was asking was, what will that information add to your thinking on it?
I would like to just ask Mrs. DeWord what the magic is about going back 7 years. Do you really go back 7 years when you get prepared for a board meeting?
Thank you for that question. No, I think that this is common practice. If you just look at all the public agencies, and we have been the least transparent of these public agencies that I've found, and I just found 5 to 7 was as a regular, some go farther back. And I don't know why, in this day and age, that this cannot be done. And I don't understand why there is a no. History is important. We have, I want to have the opportunity to access this information, and everyone should be able to. You don't know about the people that maybe wanted this information, and then they saw, oh, I need to email, I need to wait 10 days, and the time has passed. I just think we should have immediate public access because this technology is available to us.
Well, and I don't, again, in my motion, I'm not disputing any of that. In fact, I'm embracing that. But I'm suggesting we only do 2 more years for a total of 5, and that we do make it ADA compliant so that it is transparent and accessible to all. So more discussion?
I have a comment. Originally, you had said 5 to 7 years, correct? And when we're able to do the 5 years, why, I'm just wondering why you changed your mind to 7 years after you had said 5 to 7 and we were able to do the 5.
That's a really good point. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and
Yes.
We have counsel being very patient. And that he's paid to be patient. I would like, if Craig has a thought, Mr. Price has a thought, I'd like to hear it. I think there's a motion, and I think it represents an effective melding of a lot of different views. And speaking of patience, 3 people are demonstrating incredible patience in the front row. So I would urge that we listen to Mr. Price. We then vote on the motion if there's no more discussion.
You seconded it, correct?
No.
No, we two did. Okay, we two. Okay.
Mr. Rice?
I can only partially answer the question. And by that, I mean that under the law, the default is that what goes up on the web is required to be compliant. The corollary question that was really raised by Mr. Porter is something that I haven't evaluated. Certainly, if in a document there was a photo of the Constitution, that would not have to be made ADA compliant. However, if there were materials, for example, that related to something that was coming before the board, for example, an analysis having to do with, let's say, the 14th Amendment, then it would be required to be compliant. So I can tell you that right now, my office has an Office of Civil Rights from the Department of Education complaint about some materials posted on the web by another district, which are not compliant. And so we are required to respond to that and to explain on what basis, if any, we can find an exception. I don't know if there is an exception that would allow there to be a cutoff where there's just an indication going up onto the web that says prior to 2018 or 2019, these materials are posted for convenience only, but are not ADA compliant. I don't know if that would be acceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Dr. Salcido.
Thank you. If I may make a comment, it sounds like we're getting close to action from the board. I wanted to say that, I really appreciate the dialogue and consideration for staff time. I've heard it from everyone. I really appreciate that. Having said that, I also respect and appreciate the action of the board. So please know that we will absolutely do what it is the board elects to do. Having said that, I appreciate too that there was a provision about handing over the prioritization of the time of the staff back to me and our team to be able to prioritize that in due time or implement whatever is decided. So I want to say thank you for that. I do want to say that I have looked not at every website, not at every county, not at every district, not at every entity. I want to say that there really doesn't seem to be a standard. I just say that because there are some entities with 25 years, 20 years, 15 years, 5 to 7 years. We have our largest district in Santa Barbara County with this year and last year. We've got a neighboring county from going to 2019 and another next door county that goes to 2016. It's really what it is, I believe, that the board decides as an entity what it is you would like to have on the board. So please know that I and our staff will fully support the action of the board and would appreciate, however, the timeline to be my decision and ours to make in order to implement it well with ADA compliance. So wanted to say that back to you. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready for a vote?
Is it possible to amend that moving forward, we collect for 7 years, so we do the 5 years now, and then moving forward, we'll be able to have the 7 years, so we don't have to go back.
I will make that amendment to my motion. So we'll just continue to gather them until we have 7, and then we will roll. But we won't have to go back and do 4 years historical to ADA, okay?
I really don't feel strongly about this, but I think it's a little confusing. So your motion is 2 back, ADA compliant, that will make, as soon as reasonably possible, we will have 5 years ADA compliant. Going forward, we'll maintain 7 instead of maintaining 5.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes?
Thank you, Ms. Ehrman. I appreciate the compromise. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And I want to thank the board. I want to thank Michelle for bringing forward some very, very good points for us to consider and to realize that we could get to 7 by just holding on for 2 more years and we'd be there. So I think it was a good decision and good work on behalf of the board. Thank you very much. And to our wonderful students and faculty who are here and now can't wait to be board members. I turn the meeting over to Dr. Salcido to present our program for today.
Oh, thank you so much. And Mrs. Choi, thank you so much for being here today. We'll invite you just in a moment to head to the podium with your students. You're welcome to tell us the names of your students who are here today. Yeah. Hi, Quill. Jose, welcome. We're so glad you're here. The next question after all this will be, what do you think of that discussion? But not now. Very good. Very good. I like that. Very, very good. Well, welcome. And you're here and you're the reason we're here in terms of students and staff and education throughout Santa Barbara County. And I just wanted to frame for the board a few connections to the county board. So Mrs. Choi and I I've not seen the presentation yet, but I'm just so excited to hear it. Partners in Education, which is Partners in Education, which is a nonprofit administered by SBCEO, is connected to Innovate. So that is one connection. Another connection, of course, is I think most important is that we discuss how important it is to individualize education for students. And I truly believe that Innovate DP is all about that, about seeing their students, valuing each and every one, and individualizing for their strengths. And then third, we operate juvenile court and community schools. We also, of course, are really mindful of all the county schools. So I think just hearing one program from a county's school is wonderful. Another is, I'm not sure that we'll hear it today, but I'm very curious about this, that perhaps the outcomes that are reached through Innovate, perhaps the relationships that are built through Innovate, and because of the incredible students we have in Innovate, perhaps there's a magic there that actually shifts them from attending juvenile court and community schools, or shift them from that they stay within their comprehensive school rather than perhaps being supported by JCCS. I don't know that came out as exactly as complimentary as I meant for both parties, but I think you've got what I mean. So with that, I want to say welcome again to Kelly and Will and Jose, and I'll give you the podium, please. Thank you.
We're not ringing, so we just make up. Who knows? There's no telling. Yeah. I felt like that was a great experience for us. Right. I felt like we got a good experience, didn't we? Yeah. Exactly. So thank you for your time today. Innovate DP is a new program in terms of, we just launched it last year. Its first full year was last year, but it is not new in development. It is the transformation of an older program we had called the Academy for Success. The Academy for Success ran for 12 years. We successfully graduated students who had identified themselves as high school dropouts. And we took everything we learned from them and basically said, look at all the success we're having. 98% of our students graduated on time. 100% of them did graduate, just not on time maybe. And the problem was they were coming to school and they loved their teachers, they loved their classmates, and they would say to us every day, like, I hate school. And we're like, what is that? Like, that is something we can't sit okay with. So the teachers and I went on a 2-year tour. We went and saw other schools throughout the United States. We went to national conferences, looking for best practices and asking people, how do you engage students in their learning? How do you make them curious? How do you make them want to be at school? And so although the Academy had already taught us greatly on how to do that with relationships and with how to help them as people, we needed that extra push. Like, they were pretty much just doing math because I said, hey, do math. And they're like, okay, well, I like you, Miss Choi, so I'll do math. But that's not a good reason for them, right? So Innovate came from that. We basically said, gosh, what we learned was if students have some voice and they have some choice about what they're learning, then their interests are going to be much higher in what we're doing. And so just I'm going to take you through that today and then let you actually hear from our students, their experience. What you're seeing on the screen here are 2 pictures of some of the workshops that the kids have been doing, which I'll explain to you as we go. So this is what's different. Basically, it's a personalized learning approach. People confuse personalized learning with pace. We don't mean like work at your own pace, although there are parts of our program that allow that. It's personalized in the sense of what are you interested in, who are you, what do you think is success, and how do you want that to look for yourself? And so what I'm doing for Jose is different than what I'm doing for Quill, right? Because they're 2 different people. And we want to make sure that both of them have the success that they define for their life. That's important, that they define, right? Not what we think is success. So what's different is our workshops. We have a self-directed learning component, and we have Habits of Heart. We also are a mastery learning program, which means that you're not going to fail because we're not interested in that. We're interested in you learning. And so if you are not learning, what do we need to do to support you so that you are learning? And so that's what they mean by the mastery learning. And then we are strong in community. This is really where our roots of the Academy came in, where our teachers are coaching, and we're in a cohort model, and we have counseling. So I'm going to take you through some of those. Yes. Oh, yes, I'm going to do that. So can I, yeah, later, but we'll do it. Okay, so first really unique thing about Innovate is that we have taken math, English, history, and science, and we have broken them into what we call workshops. And the workshops are based on student interest. So for example, you can see some of them are up here. Students in period 1 could have chosen between constitutional rights or very exciting linear functions. Right? Me too. And then second period, they would have 2 choices, designer babies and campus mental health. You can see that there's a bit of a focus on each one of them, right? English, math, history, science in there. Then they would take this workshop for 4 weeks, and in 4 weeks, they would do some sort of project-based learning, and then they would move into a new workshop, and so they would swap. They get all of their credits for math, English, history, and science through all these workshops. So we have it very carefully set up so that they can experience all the curriculum. The mastery learning is how we grade them. So if you talk to our students, they're not going to talk to you about A's and B's and C's. They're going to talk to you about their learning, and they're going to talk to you about like their, like knowledge of the content. Just as all of us are, there are things that we have a basic knowledge about. There's some things that we are proficient at, and then there are some things that each of us are masters at, right? And so in every workshop they're in, all of the skills that they are learning are spelled out. Those skills are what we call competencies. The competencies are based on the state standards. And so they basically exhibit through their learning what level of knowledge they are at. We don't even consider giving them any kind of scoring until they're at basic knowledge. So if there's any prerequisite learning, we spend time helping them gain that first before moving forward. We also still offer the honors credit for the courses that are allowed to have honors credit. So like, for example, in 9th grade, only English and math is allowed to have honors credit. So the students can have the honors credit. I'm sure you've been following in the Santa Barbara School District about the universal access. That is rooted from the work that we've been doing, and the idea is that no longer do you have to pre-designate that you are an honor student. You can just show that you are an honor student, so it doesn't matter what room you're in. In order to support our students at both ends, we provide self-directed learning time and guided studies. The self-directed learning time is for our students who are independent workers and thinkers. They're the ones who have their own ideas, have their own thoughts about what they want to work on or do. They can organize themselves. They have their time management down. And so we just give them some time and say, here, organize yourself and get what you need done. The guided studies is for our students who are more of our reluctant learners and wanting to have, they haven't been taught. And so when I say reluctant, I mean reluctant in the sense that they don't know what to do next. And so they need time management skills, or they need study skills, how to do flashcards, whatever. And so the guided studies is available to them for tutoring, mentoring, helping them with the work that they're doing. Yes, that's good. Our community has to do with the coaching. All of our students are
So excuse me, I'm so
Yes,
sorry. I
it's
was
okay.
just using a hand signal too. I just got a message that we need to go a little bit more of a moderate pace.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm sorry, I get so
I'm
excited.
so sorry
Oh,
to
it's
interrupt.
totally okay. Yeah, no.
Sorry about that.
I'm very excited about what we do, so sorry.
Thank you.
All of our students are coached by a teacher. So their teachers are checking in with them regularly, just to check in with how they're doing academically or how they're doing, just personally. It's to set goals and to work on what they want to do as a student and where their success is. We are in a cohort model, so we do have 60 10th graders, and then we have 60 9th graders. So this year we're serving 120 students. The cohort idea is so that the students at a 2,200 student school have a smaller group that they can associate with, make friends with, feel connected to, feel inspired by what they're doing there. And so, you can think of it as a large club in that sense, that they can have that support. And then we have counseling. So before schools had counseling at the schools, the Academy was doing this for like a decade. And we basically really believe in the counseling part of it because our students are carrying a lot more than just, academic needs. And so our counselors are designated just for Innovate. They do meet with the Innovate teachers. Everything they work with the students on is confidential, and they are able to have input from the teachers where we can say, we're seeing this behavior, or we see this happening, we're concerned, what kind of advice can you give us? And they don't give us advice about that specific student, but they do give us advice about what we could do, what's developmentally appropriate, or how we could work as a team. Because the students have a team of teachers, they can really gain from the consistency of the team all approaching the student the same way. So that is really important to us. We additionally have a life coach that works with us. He is very relatable to the students, and it's at that intermediate step between just the student being in class and the student needing therapy. Perhaps they just need an adult to talk to a few times to get some good adult advice. So that's the community we build. So Habits of Heart. This one is really near and dear to our hearts. This was created by our team. It is fun. We use research from Habits of Mind. That's a book. And we saw this at several high schools. There were lots of different versions of it. So we came back and built our own version. These are the 10 skills that colleges and careers tell us our students need to be successful there. And when you look at them, all of us are probably good at some of them, and all of us have some of them that we could work on, right? And so what's really great about Habits of Heart is we as a whole community of learners can talk, adults included, about where our struggles are and where our strengths are. And this grounds our conversations with our students. So if they are struggling, a lot of times we can give them words to what they're dealing with, and we can ask them to work on something. So all 10 of these Habits of Heart we consider skills. We consider them habits, the things that we can work on and build a habit around. And so we have a rubric is not the right word, but it'll be the most relatable of things they can do under each one of these that could possibly help them grow and build that habit so that they can find greater success. We do make growth in Habits of Heart a requirement to graduate from Innovate. So they have to show us each year, what habit of heart are you working on? What would you, and we want to see some growth in those areas. So as you can imagine, like right now, our these two are 10th graders, right? And they'll laugh a little when they think about being 9th graders, but our 9th graders are working heavily on self-regulation right now, right? And so there's a lot of like, oh, we're back in school, and this is how it works in society, and we can't say those things or touch people's stuff, or so we're doing a lot of self-regulation right now with the 9th graders. I would say the 10th graders, y'all are working much more on self-awareness and problem solving. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So the Habits of Heart just really grounds us in our conversations with our students. These are the results that we have after the end of year one. We are focused on credits. You have to have 220 credits to graduate high school. And so we have 100% of our students who have the required 60 credits that freshmen need. We have an average, you can see, of 77 credits, so they did an outstanding job. Equally as impressive is 72% of our students are already on the track for A through G eligibility. So they are already on track for going to college, which is just outstanding for our students. This one is more of just an interesting data point because we issue incompletes because our system requires that we issue grades, but we don't really see an end time to the learning. So we look for incompletes, meaning that they need some more time to learn some skills. So at the end of our term one last year, we had 58 incompletes, which we kind of expected because we had a lot of students coming to us who maybe weren't students for a long time. But then at the end of term four, we only had one incomplete, and she actually had been out for 2.5 weeks of COVID. So I feel like I get to I'd like to say it was no incompletes, but she really did. But she went to summer school for just like a few days and was able to finish the work that she needed to work on. We don't talk about GPAs, but I did share it just because that is something relatable to everyone. The GPA, so even though we only talk about 2s, 3s, and 4s in our classes, we do have to transcript in a traditional manner. So we do that. And so when we do that, our GPA comes out to an average of 3.12, which is excellent. B's, A's, and B's. And 100% of our students are attending school. MTSS, we're familiar. Okay, MTSS is the multi-tiered systems of support structure that schools have adopted, which is basically saying like 100% of students are going to get this type of support, and then fewer students are going to get more support, and then very few students are going to get a lot of support. And so each school now is monitoring that through their MTSS group. For us, our 9th graders were the lowest number of students we had to monitor in that group because they were in Innovate. So the results were really, we were really proud of them, and I think the important part there is to say this. When we identified our 60 students, we went to the 8th grade, and this was still tough because it was COVID and we were wearing masks and whatever. And so it was very difficult to actually try and recruit. But we opened it up to all 8th graders. We said, here's Innovate. If you want to learn differently and you want to do school differently, please join us. And then based on the responses that we got back, we identified our priority students. So our students who have been unsuccessful at school. And so out of our 60 students, we target somewhere between 40 and 45 of those students being priority students. So I think when you see this data, it's important to point out that these are the students, there are a lot of the students in the program who have been unsuccessful in school, and moving to the high school and having even more independence pushed on them without a lot of support would probably lead them into more deficits in their learning. So even though the program is open to everyone, we internally are trying to give the students who need the most support that space. So I think that's the part I want to make sure I share here at the end. Which, to Dr. Salcido's point, you know, the Academy for Success for years was very successful in our students graduating high school and not ending up in any of the negative part of our system. And I am 100% certain that Innovate will do the same thing for our students who are in that area of struggles. So with that, I'd like to have Quill and Jose come up with me. Let's keep them staying here. And I'm going to ask them a few questions, and then you're also welcome to ask any of us some questions you want. Maybe like here? Good? Is that good? Can you see them? Okay. All right. So what I'd love for you both to do is share like how, how was school for you in junior high? Because maybe different experiences.
For me, it was a lot of stress at home, mainly my parents. So I never really had motivation to stay in class because I didn't see myself as an importance to my parents, so I didn't see myself as an importance to myself. And main thing I would struggle wasn't with learning or anything like that, it was with money. So I had to make my own way of making money, and in that situation I wasn't focused into learning anything, it was just to getting money. How I had to, how my ways were, I saw my way as don't respect anybody until you feel respected or you've shown respect to you. They've showed respect to you. And most of my teachers there, they weren't understanding. They were just there to, I guess, kind of do their job, which I understand. So they wouldn't care. They would just leave me off to the side. That brought me to not wanting to show up or teach in class. Never had interest into doing my work. Never saw myself anywhere. That's how it looked like for me. No support in either way.
For me, I was in junior high. I was really smart, but I hated doing the classes. I was good at the work. I knew what I was doing. I learned easily, but I was never interested in what I was learning. So I would always like push off the assignments to the side and tell myself I'd do it later. But because I never wanted to, I'd never ended up doing it in class, and then it all piled up and it was too hard to even do in the end. So I was never able to get work done.
So what has helped you in Innovate? Like how has Innovate helped you?
How in the beginning of Innovate, which was my first day, I saw that it was a lot of support. I saw that people that were working with us, with me, weren't just doing it for their job, for their money. They were actually interested and invested in helping me out. So I got a lot of support. I was understood, which has never happened before.
And Quill?
When I went into Innovate, the teachers found ways to make the learning interesting, so that I I wouldn't push myself. I just want to do it. And made learning way easier. And also the support was really nice. They helped me get into a lot of my current passions, actually, which I'm really happy about.
And how do you both feel like you're changing as a person?
I'm not how I used to be. I'm more invested in myself and in my future. I want to be social, which is something that everybody's supposed to be. But I want to be more open-minded to the world. If that makes sense.
I caught myself procrastinating a lot less, which is really good for me because I've always had like really big plans for the future, but I've never worked to achieve them. And now I've been able to work towards it, look at colleges for the future, and plot better habits.
That's also a big thing for me. Never saw myself going to college or university. Now I'm well invested into being the first generation in my family. None of my brothers, none of my cousins have gone. So that kind of pushed me to want to go to a university or to a college. And I don't know what a major is. I don't know what a bachelor's or a master's is. But I'm interested in that.
That's awesome. Can you also speak to both of you use a lot of our support resources the way you want to? So we have, not only do we have the counselors, the therapists, and life coach, but we also have mentors. The mentors are young adults that we hire to come work in the classroom, help them academically and personally. And actually, most of our mentors are academy graduates who are going to college and working with us part-time. So I know you both have worked with some of the mentors or therapists, so could you both speak to your own personal experience with either one of those?
To me, the first mentor that I catched onto was, her name is Antonia. She didn't give me an option of failing or not showing up to class. It was just, the only option was go to class and do your work. But I feel like the mentors helped me out because I could connect to them one-on-one, and I can feel comfortable on relating to problems, traumas, or things that I just have going on. So being able to connect with them, it's really helpful. And just having a person that you can go to give you that reassurance, it's a good feeling to have.
I don't really work with mentors much. There is one, his name is G, and he's really nice to everyone. Every morning, I work in the library and catch up with work, and he always gives me a fist bump, and it always makes my day. But I also have worked with therapists a lot, and they're really cool because at any time, if I'm feeling down, I can just ask my teacher. I haven't done this once yet, but I can just ask the teacher if I can go talk to her. And there's a private room in the library where I can speak one-on-one to her and solve any issues going on, and that's really helped me a lot. Because she also used to pull me out of class sometimes just to speak to her, and it really helped me cope with a lot of things.
Great. And do y'all have any questions you'd like to ask?
Do you see yourselves as mentors as you work through this process?
Yes. I've talked to my mentor about that. I want to help out the next Jose because I know what I've gone through, and I know there is definitely people that are going to go through that or are going through it. So if I can change somebody else's future, it would be nice. I feel as everybody should have a chance, and everybody should have at least one adult, one person that they can depend on, and I wish I could be one as well.
By the way, I love your black and white theme.
When we talked to the now 9th graders in Innovate, I could tell that a lot of them just were not interested in any of it. And I'm really happy that I could talk to them and help them find something that, like a class that's interesting, and to get them to do work without being bored.
I just want to thank you guys for coming and sharing your story. It's really powerful. And to be as open and as authentic. It's not hard to go up into strangers that you don't know and just, you know, be really truthful about your process. And so thank you for trusting us and for sharing that with us, because it's very inspiring. And I believe that you guys will do whatever your heart desires, because you have, you know, the habits of heart. You can see that, and you can see that level of self-awareness that people, you know, twice your age sometimes don't even have. So the question I have is, what are you most passionate about in your learning? Like, what do you love about, what do you love to learn about the most in the program?
Recently, what I got really interested is chemistry. The whole buildup of an element such as carbon, all that, which is something I never saw myself being interested in. History as well. What I see myself nowadays is focusing in my education, which is something I would have never thought I would do. Thanks to Innovate, now I'm willing to go to class and I'm willing to do the work. So that's what's been difficult for me.
I love math. Math's my favorite class, but it's always one thing. But in junior high, I always hated chemistry or any type of science stuff, because it was really boring to me and I never felt like I needed it in the future. So I never felt the need to learn it. But this year and last year, I caught myself like actually really enjoying what we were learning.
I hate it when that happens.
Who's your chemistry teacher?
And yeah, it's been really fun to learn actually.
How, I'm just adding on to how she said it, what I just got reminded of is some of my junior high teachers they were invested in what they were teaching, so that was their passion. And in the way how they would try and pass it on to us is they would like pressure us, forcing it onto us without understanding that might not be our passion. And we just want to learn. We just want to, learn, not pick it up as one of our passions. So I feel like that's also where the problem is, how I'm gonna put it, of teachers.
Also, I guess that's a good point too. The team of teachers they had the same team of teachers last year. They have the same team of teachers this year. As we grow, we're hoping that the teams of teachers, so we have 2 separate teams of teachers right now. As we grow, we're hoping that there will be some crossover, where eventually, like in the 11th and 12th grade, maybe 11th and 12th graders are taking some of the same workshops from Innovate teachers, and that there could be a little more meshing going on. We have definitely learned that 9th grade we need to kind of keep very contained. And so we're, and that worked really well, but we are hoping to grow out. But it is important to note that, like, right, you said, who's the chemistry teacher? It's Michael Lynch. He's excellent. But that's part of it is that, they're teaching, they're used to the teachers that they have also.
Has it been a challenge for the teachers? I mean, we have 2 great testaments to how well it works as students. You guys are very eloquent. I'm sure you're selective on the teachers who are part of the program, and I absolutely certain it's not for every teacher. So how does that work?
Right. So actually, the Innovate teachers were the Academy for Success teachers. So I already had a lot of teachers who've been working on this anywhere from like 6 to 12 years. And so already very invested in that kind of learning. But yeah, it takes a teacher who loves their content and loves teaching, and equally is very interested in seeing kids learn about themselves and grow as themselves. And I'm certainly not saying that all teachers don't do that. I think the majority of teachers do that, but these teachers are then willing to put in the extra time, work as a team, and really like build together and build our strengths together and carry the weight together. So this year when we built our team, we were able to pull from more of our Academy for Success teachers. We even had one teacher transfer from one of the other high schools to DP to be an Innovate because they weren't doing it at one of the high schools. So it was, I mean, the teachers are highly invested. Plus, if you think about it, the teachers are getting, like, the topic of it is something really interesting. So the teachers are getting to teach in a very different way, which is exciting all of them. Like, they're literally constantly coming to me going, I have an idea for a workshop. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, always something really interesting. So I think it's that willingness to put in the time and do something different.
I have a question for Quill and Jose first, and then I have one for you, Mrs. Choi.
Okay.
For the students, I'm wondering, what advice would you give to an 8th grader? Or how would you make this Innovate DP program attractive to an 8th grader, in your own words?
How I put it, how I put it to myself is you have nothing to lose. Nothing bad is gonna come out of it. How I feel is, how I felt was, again, I didn't have any, how should I put it? Can I pass it on to you?
I'd tell an 8th grader to find your passion, because I found my passion, which is math. I really like math, so I have this in my head. Yeah, I really like my math class, so every day when I come into my math workshop, I get really excited and I find the learning interesting and I want to be there. And then in like junior high when I didn't have a passion for any subjects, I'd get really bored and not want to go to school that day. I'd try to like convince my mom to let me stay home. And now when I was sick, I was trying to convince my mom to let me go to school.
It's all about sort of taking a risk, which there's no bad outcome out of it. It's a really enjoyable experience. You can learn a lot from it, and you can get a lot of support. There's just no lose in it, I guess.
So
How I would put it.
downside. Ms. Choi, I'm wondering how many students apply each year, and do you have like a wait list function? And what about capacity to increase the program?
Really great questions. We do have more students. Let's see, how do we, that breakdown that I told you about of like putting certain number of students that are priority versus students who just are really interested in learning a different way. We have a waiting list of both of them. So we always have more students that we can fill in. 60 is definitely a capacity. I mean, it's just, there's only so much that we can do. But we're so proud of 60 because it used to be 30 in one grade level at a time. And so for us now to have already 120 in 2 years makes us really excited and happy. The process is the priority students. We're looking for the students who, have fewer supports elsewhere. We do take EML students that are EML, and we have students who have an IEP, just so that we cannot overburden our other teachers in those categories and have too many of one type of student in one classroom. But we are really looking for the students who don't have a lot of services and need support for that category. The other category is just kind of a just however, whoever signs up, and then we just talk with them, and it seems like a good fit, and so we take them, and then we basically will say like, oh, we can, add in more if we have a student leave or something like that. And just side note too, this is only the second time that they've ever done this, and we didn't practice. So I'm extremely proud of it.
I mean, seriously, to the program and to you, Jose and Quill, you demonstrate what we work for. You demonstrate why we are here having so much fun, which you saw. And I just thank you so much for coming today and for sharing with us your experiences. They're priceless. You are priceless. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us today. We really appreciate your time.
I have a little something
Oh,
I want to hand over here
yes,
to
please.
Quill and Jose. And it's just a certificate of appreciation.
Very nice.
For your presentation today.
Great. Thank you very much.
Oh, she got it. She got it. Okay, we're good.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. I'm going to get these ones back to school after school, so we'll see. Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye. Wow. If ever of us had any doubts. That was just, yeah. I need a moment. Jeez, program of the year. Okay, where are we? Number 20, recommend adoption resolution for exception to the 180-day wait period. We have a Braille teacher who has retired and been trying to replace her and have been unsuccessful so far in being able to find a replacement. So we are asking to pass the resolution to allow her to come back and continue part-time to fill her duties. And I think it's really important to note two things. First of all, this rarely happens. It's like the second time in 4 years or something like that this has even come before the board. And each time it happens, they have to bring a resolution forward. So it's not like we're approving it for, whoever they want to use it for or whatever. It's very, very specific. So I'm looking for a motion to adopt. Mr. Porter.
Never mind. Yeah, but I'll make a comment in discussion. So
Please do.
I'm really philosophically opposed to doing this, but if there's ever a reason to do it, this is it. Holy mackerel. So I'm very pleased we have the capability to do this.
And we will continue, not me, Dr. Salcido and her staff will continue to be looking for a permanent replacement. This is not a permanent situation by any stretch of the imagination. So all those in favor? Oh, roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Cardy?
Aye. Mrs. Daney?
Aye.
Mrs. DeWord?
Aye.
Ms. Ehrman?
Aye.
Mrs. Frost? Aye. Mr. Howell?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. And now we have a resolution to adopt Red Ribbon Week. And I think we're all familiar with the Red Ribbon Week program. The superintendent is recommending our adoption of this resolution proclaiming October 23rd to the 31st as Red Ribbon. Wascally Wabbit. Red Ribbon Week in Santa Barbara County. I would entertain a motion.
So move.
Second. Second. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, it's a roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Cardy?
Aye. Mrs. Daney? Aye. Mrs. DeWord?
Aye.
Ms. Ehrman?
Aye.
Mrs. Frost? Aye. Mr. Howell?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. The next one is also a roll call. I'll say that up front. Okay, and it's our standard resolution recognizing state of emergency, allowing our teleconferencing meetings. Do I hear a motion? Second,
A second.
discussion?
Yeah, I do have a question. So the county has stopped some boards from doing this, but I didn't know if that's the county doing their thing or if the state has stopped us from doing this.
The state is allowing boards to still pass this resolution at this time, yes.
I have a question. Do we have an update from County Health on what the case is, and are we in a low? What standard are we, so in terms of case rates and hospitalizations?
I haven't had an update with public health this week. We have one scheduled upcoming, so I don't have one for you. Is that in relation to this resolution, or were you wanting just to?
Yes, because I just would, I'm leaning towards voting no, because I believe that in-person meetings are really much richer experience, and I don't go for Zoom just because of the connectivity problems, barking dogs, things like that. So I would prefer in-person meetings.
I'd be glad to get an update from public health and provide that for you, but I haven't had one this week.
This would also provide us with the option of doing our committee meetings as well.
Correct.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Cardy?
Aye.
Mrs. Daney?
Aye.
Mrs. DeWord?
No?
Ms. Ehrman?
Aye.
Mrs. Frost?
Aye.
Mr. Howell? Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, we're on to discussion item number 23, and this has come up, it's carrying over from last month discussion we had, and actually it was Ms. DeWeerd who,
That's me. Good job.
not myself, I'd rather just say Michelle, it's much safer. Anyhow, and I'd like to ask her if she would start the discussion on this. And today, no action, but hopefully at the end of our discussion, we will have direction to go from here, so. Word.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss the eligibility of 2 community college employees to serve in public office of serving on the county school board. And I appreciate you, Mr. Price, for being here and providing the AG opinions, which played the role in your analysis. And as you may recall, at our last board meeting, I voted no on the provisional appointment to fill the board vacancy. I believed it was an unfair process. That council's position seemed inconsistent with the fact that currently community college professors and employees are serving on county school boards within the state. And I requested the AG opinions. I'm not a lawyer, but I reviewed the 4 AG opinions carefully, and none of these seem to conclude that college professors can't be county school board members for K through 12 education. I truly found the AG opinions interesting, but I need your help to understand whether we would really be on firm footing if we took the position that community college professors cannot serve on this county board of ed. In my opinion, none of the AG opinions supports your conclusion that community college employees, Dr. Dean Nevins and Professor Lane Wheeler, are ineligible to serve office on our county board. Rather, everything in these AG opinions point to the opposite conclusion. The first and the last opinions have to do with the definition of public office. There's no way you can say that a community college professor is a public office holder. In fact, AG number 1 on page 2, the last paragraph, the Attorney General explicitly states the opposite of your conclusion of incompatibility. And the AG made it very clear. It states that a public officer shall not hold 2 public offices simultaneously that are incompatible. And the AG added, quote, "This prohibition only applies to when each position is a public office, not a position of employment," end quote. The doctrine does not apply if one position is a public employee and the other position is an employee. AG opinions 2 and 3 don't seem to be a close call either, and involves matters of charter school executive directors and teachers within the jurisdiction of the K through 12 school system. The community college system is not under the jurisdiction of the K through 12 school system. And how do these opinions apply? So I have just a few more questions. Where can the board find relevant laws, case law, ed code that prevents Dr. Dean Nevins and Professor Lane Wheeler from serving public office on the county school board? I would, yeah, I have a, yes. Well, I have a few questions, but that would be my first question.
Well, it's your preference, but I would prefer hearing your comments so that I could respond first in the general and then in the very particular way in the attempt to, among other things, answer the specific questions. In other words, I'd rather be able to discuss the issue with you rather than just respond question by question, because I do have quite a bit to say in response to what you've already commented.
Okay, how about we'll start then response to what I had to say, and then I'll ask some questions.
Thank you. To begin with, I truly appreciate your skepticism, because it's not an easy decision to disqualify someone for eligibility to either run for a public office or to be appointed to a public office. And with that in mind, my partner Austin Payne and I really struggled over this question, and we gave it a lot of deep analysis and a lot of deep thought, not only because of the seriousness of the question, but also because we were aware that there are other county offices around the state that do have sitting community college employees. Having that in mind, we actually developed what we usually do when there's a serious substantive question, and that is a written opinion, pursuant to which we did a pretty serious deep dive as to the reasons why we developed the opinion that we did. I was very reluctant to circulate that opinion, however, because I know that neither the board nor Dr. Salcido would want to do anything that would compromise the position of other counties and board members on other county boards. And my concern has been, and still is, that to the extent that this discussion becomes, if you will, broadcast outside of our jurisdiction, that it could very easily lead to additional questions being raised having to do with other community college members on other county boards of education. And so that's the reason why you haven't received anything more from my office other than 4 Attorney General opinions. What I will tell you is that as part of the analysis that led to our conclusion, I spoke with another county superintendent who has board members who are community college employees. I spoke to a legal counsel for another county superintendent where there are community college employees that are on the board. That in connection with my discussion with the lawyer, in which I explained my position, she did not disagree, and she expressed a preference that the information and the analysis that I shared not unnecessarily be spread outside of Santa Barbara because of the impact that it could potentially have. And so with that in mind, I have attempted to be as circumspect as possible. Now, I will also tell you that upon hearing that you had reservations about the correctness of my opinion, that I also contacted the Office of the California Attorney General. And I talked to a senior 23-year Deputy Attorney General who actually had oversight of what's called the Opinions Unit within the Attorney General's office, meaning that she is in charge of all of the opinions that are generated by the office, not just on this narrow question, but on a whole range of different issues. And I sent her a draft of my written opinion that I did, and we had a substantive discussion. And the bottom line of that discussion was, I agree with your opinion, I agree with your analysis, and I believe that the approach that you've taken in putting together the legal issues under Education Code Section 1006 and Government Code Section 1090, in addition to the way in which our office, meaning the AG's office, has developed its analysis, is correct and it's consistent with how we view these things, specifically taking a conservative approach and erring on the side of incompatibility. And I believe that although I cannot express a formal opinion without having to go through the elaborate formal opinion process, that if that were to occur, that our office would issue an opinion that is very similar to the one that you provided me with. I will say that I also asked her, out of concern for other county offices, whether or not, given the fact that there were other county board members who were community colleges, whether or not, if there was to be a formal opinion request, the Attorney General might consider whether those other county board members would be in some way grandfathered into their position, meaning that people who took office, which, at least as far as I know, most of the sitting community college board members, city college, community college employees who were on county boards, took office before the two key most Attorney General opinions that were issued in late 2021. And she told me that's a very good question, and we would really have to evaluate that. And so we talked about wanting to avoid an unnecessary impact. And so with that information, particularly, I'm confident as to the correctness of the opinion that we issued. I also considered whether or not an opinion needed to be issued. And the conclusion was that given the language of Education Code Section 1006, to have ignored the eligibility requirement would have been an abdication on the part of the county office, the board, and my role as your attorney. Just like it would be an abdication if a residency requirement was not confirmed. And so for that reason, we felt, as much as we didn't want to, that we needed to make the determination that we did. And one last additional little statement by way of background is that it was also difficult because I happen to know the two individuals, and I think very, very highly of them. And the last thing that I would have wanted to do would be to somehow impact the possibility that you may have selected them. But that was my view of the law. So that's my general statement. And if you have particular questions, I will try and answer them.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. You were referred to Ed Code 1006. Can you just briefly tell me what that is?
Good. What I'm focusing on now is the briefly, because I don't want to take any more time. The doctrine of incompatibility of office is a common law doctrine that was finally enacted into a statute, being Government Code Section 1090, many, many years ago. That is the section that was the subject of the first AG opinion that you referred to, in which, at the bottom of page 2, the Attorney General referred to the fact that it only applied to public officers, meaning board member and board member.
Right.
However, in 1955, the legislature passed Education Code Section 1006 that states the qualification to serve on a county board of education. And the Attorney General, in the opinion that I provided you having to do with the charter school and having to do with the opinion from 1986 involving a substitute teacher, said that it is clear that the passage of Ed Code Section 1006 is an effort by the legislature to extend the doctrine of incompatibility within the framework of the county boards of education. And so what 1006 says simply is that a person who is a public school district employee cannot serve on a county board of education. The question then becomes, what is a school district employee? By analogy, which is the way in which we're required to evaluate any number of legal questions, we looked at the opinion from 2021 that dealt with charter schools. The question was, is the executive director or an employee of a charter school a school district employee? There wasn't a very clear answer for that. And ultimately, the Attorney General was of the view that yes, they are school district employees, even though they're outside the scope of most school district functions and school district employment functions. In particular, they most relied on the fact that charter school staff, just like school staff, are covered by the same Brown Act, they're covered by the same conflict of laws, they're covered by the same Public Records Act. And based on that, that is what drove the decision that charter school employees are public school employees for purposes of Ed Code Section 1006. And so the obvious question arose as to whether or not the employee of a community college district is likewise a school district employee. And so we researched that and we concluded that the same thing holds true as with charter school employees. And that is that they are bound and covered by the same Brown Act, Conflict of Laws, Public Record Act, but in addition, even more so, community college employees, like K-12 employees, but not most charter school employees, are all covered by the EERA, which is the collective bargaining law that covers school districts. And I could go on. There are a number of other similarities. And so having to make a decision as to whether or not a community college district is an employee of a school district, we felt that clearly, if the opinion went to the Attorney General's office as a prelude to someone filing a challenge, that they would come up with the same opinion that we responded to.
Thank you for taking the time to walk us through this. I guess we'll have to disagree. The only thing I didn't hear is that any of these AG opinions didn't apply to community colleges, so there was a leap, community college employees, and also that we're talking about the jurisdiction where K through 12 school districts, we're governed by the California Department of Education, and community colleges are governed by the college. I don't know what it's called, the organization or something, college in it. But so I do have some more questions, but I also spoke to an attorney and a long time serving county board trustees, and the prevailing opinion from the people I spoke with was that you don't really have a lot of firm footing, and that that community college teachers not serve on the county boards. And I also, as I said in my email to you, that their comments were that community college professors are actually wonderful trustees because of the knowledge and the background they have, and they understand the needs and the outcomes from K through 12 students because they see them. So the fact that there's no ed code or law specifically saying that community college employees cannot serve on county boards, absence of that, and then with the language in the AG quote, number 1, that quote that's saying if they specifically said it doesn't include positions of employment, it just talks about the public office document. I'll say we'll just have to disagree. And as a board member, I rely on our legal counsel, and you know that you're giving us accurate, timely advice. And I don't, first of all, why didn't you disclose that you knew that there were other, I didn't know that there were other community college professors that actually served on boards. Austin never said that to us. Also, why didn't you think there was a need to disclose that you are acting counsel for Santa Barbara City College, and and then there were 2 employees that had submitted applications? Did you think that you should have disclosed that to our board?
Absolutely not. There is no conflict whatsoever, and there is no violation of my ethical obligations, which I take very, very seriously. The fact of the matter is that my client is the Board of Trustees for the Santa Barbara Community College District. Their nearly 1,000 employees or so are not my clients. And so under no ethical consideration, nor under any statutory or common law consideration, is there in any way, shape, or form a conflict. And if there had been a shadow of a doubt, I would have disqualified myself.
I'm not saying that there was a conflict. I'm just saying just a disclosing. I did not know that you served on the Santa Barbara City College board. And I wasn't
What
aware of that.
difference would it have made?
I think it would have been appropriate to disclose that. That's my feeling. And is there a waiver? Is there a conflict waiver that we have, the SBCEO has with Santa Barbara City College? Does that exist?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I don't even know what that question means. Is there a conflict waiver? Do you mean?
Sometimes when you have a client that there may be some conflict in the roles of your role, because you are representing 2 public bodies. If there's any overlap that you might have to recuse yourself, or that there's an acknowledgement that we know that you are representing Santa Barbara City College, and Santa Barbara City College understands that you're representing us.
Okay, now I understand your question. There are 2 parts to the answer. Number 1 is that in my engagement letter with each of the school districts, this office, and the community college that I represent, I include language that says there is a potential of a conflict of interest, and the client understands that. It rarely comes up, but when it does come up, and I'm the one that raises the conflict, then I bring it to the attention of the client, and I suggest that if it requires legal involvement, that someone else be engaged other than someone at Griffith and Thornburg. And so on occasion that happens, and it's also happened here.
Okay, I'll just finish with this, and if you wanted to add anything else. I stand by my no vote for the provisional appointment due to the incomplete legal advice. I think that, and it was an unfair process to fill the county board vacancy. Trustee number 2, I believe that you interfered with our ability to do our job and serve our constituents. But I think none of these A through G opinions that you provided for us give me any confidence that that a community college professor cannot serve on our board. I believe that Dr. Dean Nevins and Professor Lane Wheeler should know that there is no law, specific law that prevents them from serving, and that I hope they will come back and run for the board. And I feel it's like there's an obligation to contact these 2 individuals and encourage them to run for the county board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments from the board?
Yes. I disagree with almost everything you said, Michelle. I'm a lawyer. I am not in any way schooled in education law. This is really complicated stuff, but I do know you have to rely on legal advice. And I think Mr. Price went through as well as Austin, blanking on his last name, Payne, Austin Payne. I think both of them explained the situation. They certainly explained it to my satisfaction. And as a board, we are a board. You are one of 7. We have a superintendent who was elected. We rely on qualified counsel, which is what we did. So one of the things, I started to say this in the board comments today. I try not to make board comments. I respect everybody's ability to make board comments, but I thought I would wait to see how this played out. But I was really offended at the meeting when one of the things you said was that you thought the selection process was unfair. You played a part in every step of the selection process. You and Mr. Porter voted no. You have every right to do that. To me, looking back at all the materials, the thing that just jumped out at me that I would ask you to look at is we had, I believe it was from CCSB, we had suggested questions for each candidate. We discussed the questions. You had a change. I had a change. We all participated in that process. We then decided, let's give all of the candidates those questions ahead of time. One of the questions that I think you should ask yourself, and I'm asking it a very pointed way, is question number 2. Yours would be 1 vote on a collective board of 7. The board has 1 collective voice, although there may be differing ideas and opinions. How would you support decisions publicly if you were in the minority of the vote? So you're in the minority of the vote. So I see this and I look at it. I've been on the losing end of many votes on this board. I have many times said I've never been prouder to be part of a board where I share my opinions, they're respected, and I'm outvoted. So to me, to call a process in which all of us participated unfair very much offends me. That's it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And maybe the unfair part, I believe that we all had a chance to participate in the process. And the unfair part is that it was unfair to two community college professors. Maybe that wasn't clear. And that is where I stand. I feel that the Attorney General opinions were never disclosed. I think Austin just talked about an Imperial County Board of Education and Imperial County Board Community College. And then I found out more information, and I was surprised that community college professors. So that's where I came in right at the end of the process, where we had done the interviews, and then I found out this information, and it wasn't shared by our county council. And I thought, that's interesting. Why wouldn't, and Mr. Price expressed that he knew that there were community college professors that served on county boards, and I thought, well, why didn't he share that with us? And so maybe we're just going to have to disagree on this, but I feel like we are accountable to the process and to the constituents, and I think that this process was not fair to two individuals in the community that got disqualified. And we may not agree on this, but I don't think that being offended is I'm going to follow along, but I wanted answers. I'm accountable to our constituents. I'm accountable to the public. I'm not accountable. I'm going to work closely with the board, and I think that we have a good relationship and we can communicate. But in this case, I wanted more answers, and that's why I asked us to bring it to the board. Mr. Price offered to have a side meeting with me, but he sent those 4 opinions to us last week, and so everybody had a chance to read them. And I would love to hear how you read those opinions. I think those opinions were not, they didn't connect. They had nothing to do with community college professors.
So the last board meeting we had, one of the first things that you said is that collaborative does not mean consensus. Okay, and we have had extensive information, facts as to why the decision was made, above and beyond what we received in our packet. So whether you decide to see that as fact or not, no one else can say, or no one else has that power. But to me, and the information that we received in terms of why City College employees aren't able to serve is clear. They are school employees. That is incompatible. And we had that explanation very clearly stated in this meeting, I think. And I read the information that you read, and I did think, well, this doesn't have anything necessarily to do with a city employee. I did think that. And so I understand, but the explanation that council delivered clarified that. And so at this point, I'm wondering, when you say it's unfair, I feel that it's unfair that we are continuing to rehash a topic over and over, and no matter what the outcome is, if it isn't aligned with your opinion of the situation, then it continues. So I guess at this point, and then at a certain point, I can't help but wonder how much of this is personal, even though you said it's not. And I believe you, but if we continue to push and push and push and say things like the way the whole process proceeded was unfair, then that is a direct reflection on me sitting here today. And so my question to you is it doesn't look like anyone wants to make a change and to what the Attorney General is stating and in regards to this code. So where do we land so that we can put this topic to rest and get on to other topics that that deserve our attention?
Well, I think that I had said in the last meeting that I was voting no, and I gave my reason why, and I said I would like the AG opinions. Once I received the AG opinions, I concluded and I consulted with other attorneys, and these attorneys said, you need a second opinion. But I'm not asking for a second opinion here. I don't want to belabor this point. So I would just appreciate that we agree to disagree, that 2 individuals were eliminated from this process, I think that unfairly, and that's that. I wanted to conclude. If I had received the opinions and it was something different, I'd say, okay, now I understand. But actually, now it makes me even the opinions provided are so far that actually, as I said, I think they are supportive of the opposite of his conclusion. And I'm just going to disagree, and that's how we could move on from here.
I would also like to move on from here, but not without reminding you that during our deliberations, you took issue with the district mapping, and you determined that somebody was disqualified when in fact it hadn't been. It was a comment that was made. Prior to that, you had full knowledge that the city college employees were determined to be incompatible per 1006. After you voiced your opinion about the qualifications of someone who might not be eligible to run again in 24, you pivoted to take issue with something else. So as much as I would like to say I admire your dogged determination to disprove legal counsel, I don't. I find it at cross purposes with our process, and to continue to center this process that we were extremely equitable, fair, and extremely transparent about as unfair at this stage of the game feels like a disingenuous assertion. And I have to question, do you have another issue? Is there a different end game that you would prefer to see here?
Not at all. I just wanted to make it clear that the legal advice that we had, I think, was not complete. And that there are 2 individuals that we denied their ability to run for public office. That's it.
We've spent 3 board meetings, 2 special, 1 special, the last month, and this board meeting on this discussion that was put to bed at our deliberation meeting. And it was brought up again to the embarrassment of all in attendance, quite frankly. And Mrs. Nadra, I totally concur with your comments, and it is a reflection on her being here. And if we don't stop talking about it, what end are you looking for?
I already answered that question.
Okay.
It's just checking with Mr. Porter to see if he had anything he wanted to add, because I think everyone else has had their chance. At this point.
Well, since you asked.
Yeah. That'll show me.
I would just say, a really interesting discussion. I'm not an attorney, I'm a soldier, so very well done. But the bottom line is, Nadra, you're here. We're glad that you're here. We look forward to working with you. If we need to clean up the process, we can talk about that next time, but welcome. And we are now one board. We know what the board is composed of. You were part of that, and I'm glad of it. So that's my say.
There's no disagreement with that. None at all. It sounds like the board has no action to take on this. There's no desire. Okay. Then we have some information items that we've seen before: personnel report, the Williams Valenzuela uniform complaints report and complaints, and it's late, and correspondence, which is attached. Is there anything that we need to address in those areas? No? Okay. Future agenda items. I actually have one, and it's not about legal counsel. You're off the hook. Okay. I recently saw an advertisement for, I think it was a forum or an educational session on the juvenile justice reform in the state of California. And I would like to ask Dr. Salcido to put on a future board meeting a brief presentation, possibly bring in somebody from the county on what it is, how is it going to be implemented in our county, and what's the status and what's the timeline. Then from you, I'd like to hear, how does it affect us? Or may it affect us? Or will it affect us? So it kind of shivered my timbers.
Thank you. Yeah, will do.
Anything else that we want to talk about in the future? More cake. Let's have more cake. Okay, then I need a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? We're done.